Welcome into a special edition of Chatterbox Bengals Training Camp Scuffle Edition. Stone Shields joined by Craig Sandlin. Appreciate you all joining in today. Stone, look, last year we talked a lot about the offense not responding when Joe Burrow got hit during games. That seems to be changing. Lucas Patrick, Shemar Stewart get into it today at practice. What was your immediate response to seeing the scuffle that happened?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I was happy that it went down, to be completely honest with you, right? Obviously, training camp, it started. They've had, 14 practices to this point, and there really hasn't been any type of scuffle or any type of, fight out there on the practice field. And I think it's something you see really across the NFL. Not to say that you want fights to happen all the time, but to your point, this was an offensive line last year that Joe Burrow took some late shots after the whistle, and the offensive line really didn't do a ton about it. And here, especially, you want to set the tone with the rookie, right? This isn't like Trey Hendrickson was coming off the edge and bumped into Joe Burrow. No, this is a rookie who, by the way, took a while to sign his contract. He's kind of getting his feet wet here, right? Kind of getting ramped into this whole process. So they absolutely had to respond in this way. And look, it wasn't anything vicious, right? Lucas Patrick clearly got beat on the play, but then Shemar Stewart kind of lost his balance and he was stumbling in to the quarterback, Joe Burrow. I haven't really seen video out there of the collision. I know James Rapine, of course, was videoing the whole thing, but he was traveling with his camera to the football, so he kind of panned away as the hit happened. But at the end of the day, with a rookie doing that, you got to stick up for your quarterback, and as we'll talk as we continue through the show. But lots of players commented on the situation, and that's your franchise back there in Joe Burrow. And anytime he gets even touched, you need somebody to respond. And I was happy that Lucas Patrick responded in the way he did.
Absolutely. And let's talk about exactly what happened. You mentioned it there, but Shemar Stewart beats Lucas Patrick on a pass rush going inside. It looked like he had kind of turned back inside after starting outside. Very clearly seemed to be stumbling in the video that we did see, but didn't actually see the exact bump. So for all we know, maybe he regained his footing and then bumped him harder than needed. But either way, ends up with Joe Burrow on the ground. Burrow apparently hopped right back up, didn't say anything, kind of jogged to the sideline or whatever. It was very early on in their 11-on-11 drills, which it was described later on as scrappy, to say the least. But look, I mean, I think ultimately what this leads to is a conversation that I think we saw in the first preseason game. It's the same conversation we've been having all offseason, and that is this Cincinnati Bengals offensive line has a lot of work to do and a lot of things to prove still. And it starts, of course, with expected starting guard, Lucas Patrick. And, watching Lucas Patrick on this first preseason game against the Eagles, he certainly wasn't good enough. PFF grade on the pass rush block, a 37.1, 52.2 overall for Lucas Patrick on the day. Outscored by guys like Andrew Stuber and by Cordell Volson. I mean, not a guy that right now a lot of people were excited to bring in to begin with, but is he the answer at guard for now? What is your take on what the Bengals need to do as a starting guard? I think all four other positions are locked up except for that one position, and that is right guard.
Absolutely. There really is a ton to clean up as far as the offensive line goes. I think last year was the best offensive line that Joe Burrow has had, but still he got hit way too many times, and it wasn't nearly as good as it needed to be. Obviously, you saw the turnover there. Frank Pollock, no longer the offensive line coach. Now it's Scott Peters. That change happened for a reason. They're kind of banking on Peters to come in and develop some of these guys because you really don't have a ton of new faces there along the offensive line. But as you pointed out, I think 4 of the 5 positions are kind of locked in as far as your starters go, barring injury, of course. Your bookend tackles are in place. Orlando Brown Jr., who, by the way, was not out at practice today for Cincinnati. Your first-round pick last year, Amarius Mims on the right side, Ted Karras at the center position. I think you got to be optimistic about what you saw from Dylan Fairchild at that left guard spot. The conversation around Fairchild ever since the moment he was drafted was, okay, the expectation is for him to come in and start at that guard spot in week 1. And I think you feel pretty good about what you saw from Fairchild in the first couple of series. So obviously there's going to be a little bit of trepidation when he goes out there against that Cleveland Browns front in week 1 1 of the regular season, but you can at least exhale a little bit because he looks like he's trending in the right direction as far as a rookie goes. But yeah, that right guard spot is the one that is up for grabs here at this point. And as time goes on, it feels like it is Lucas Patrick's job to lose there at that right guard spot. As you mentioned, against the Eagles, he was not great, but I think you're starting to see Cody Ford get phased out a little bit. I think they prefer him to be more of that swing tackle guy. That, of course, was his role last year for Cincinnati, and it feels as though it's only a matter of time before they name Lucas Patrick as that starter along that right guard spot. Obviously, there's still time. There's somebody that could clear waivers that maybe Cincinnati has interest in, but right now my money would be on Lucas Patrick being your starter there at that right guard spot, and obviously that's kind of an issue considering how he has played. And this is a guy that has been a bit of a journeyman, right? When the Bengals got him kind of at the tail end, so to speak, of free agency, that was kind of their big addition along the offensive line. And us as a fan base, we were like, well, we were hoping for a little bit more than that, but they went with Lucas Patrick. Nothing but positivity coming from Zach Taylor and your offensive line coach, Scott Peters, about Lucas Patrick. But the play throughout camp has been spotty. And even on this rep, the one that we're talking about, he got beat badly on this rep by Shemar Stewart. And you definitely have question marks about his future with this football team, but it looks like he's going to be the guy here at this point.
Yeah, and ultimately that leads us to the conversations that happened in the locker room afterwards between reporters and leaders like Ted Karras. And Ted Karras took responsibility. He said at the end of the day, this offensive line has to be better. It has to protect Joe Burrow, who is the heart and soul of this team and the future of this team. And it ultimately falls on this offensive line to get better. What did you think about Ted Karras taking that responsibility and taking the onus and saying, look, we have to be better. Yeah, Shemar Stewart has to be more careful and can't be hitting our quarterback, but we've got to be better too.
Yeah, I absolutely love that from Ted Karras. I think for me personally, and I'm sure much of the fan base as well, as time goes on, he just continues to climb the ladder of who my favorite player is on this team, right? I think he embodies everything this team wants to be about, and more broadly than that, everything the city of Cincinnati is about as well. So it was not a surprise at all to me that Karras addressed the situation the way in which he did, and he basically was like, yeah, something happened, and it garnered a response. Lucas Patrick was there. He delivered that response. With the footage that we've seen of this scrum, scuffle, whatever you want to call it, didn't appear as though anything got out of hand, but what it did do is it kind of lingered a little bit as far as the chippiness of practice throughout the rest of the session kind of increased due to what transpired on the football field in that particular rep between Shemar Stewart and Lucas Patrick. But he's 100% right. I think Ted Karras takes full responsibility for what goes on along the Cincinnati offensive line, as he should, as the center, and more importantly than that, takes full responsibility of what happens to the guy behind him, number 9, Joe Burrow, and making sure he stays up and on his feet. So I was really happy with how Karras addressed the situation, not surprised whatsoever. And at this point, we're just hoping that more reps, more time that this offensive line can work together, it will lead to more progress down the road. And by the time we hit the regular season, they'll be able to go out there and protect Joe Burrow better than he was protected last season.
Yeah, Karras also talked about how the defense, quite frankly, quote, kicked their ass today at practice. Said if it was a live game that they probably would have gotten 4+ sacks on Joe Burrow in that game. 2 standouts, newcomer TJ Slaton, who has looked really good so far in camp reportedly. And then the other one, of course, Shemar Stewart. Ted Karras talked about the intensity that Shemar Stewart has brought to this team, which I think, quite frankly, we can agree was something that was lacking last year. There wasn't really that intense leader on the defensive side of the ball. It's uncommon for you to see that in a rookie, but for a first-round pick, number 17 overall, to come in and say, look, I'm going to be a leader on this team. We're going to lead with example, be fierce in the huddle, be fierce on the field. I think that was really needed, and especially as we continue to see Trey Hendrickson hold out, Shemar Stewart's emergence as a solid contributor defensively, but also a vocal leader in bringing that intensity in every single rep is something that's needed. Are you, obviously the game on against the Eagles was not a great indicator, but at the same time, not all the ones we're playing. Are you starting to believe a little bit more in this Bengals defense at all, or are you still holding out any hope that they might be any improved from last year?
I don't know about the entirety of the defense here to this point, but I am starting to believe in Shemar Stewart a little bit more. I think the conversation has completely flipped on Shemar Stewart, right? Obviously, after he was drafted, it was all about the drama, him not signing his contract, the issue with his agent, and he kind of, put the organization on blast there for a little bit as well, basically saying that they wanted to win arguments more than get deals done and win football games, which obviously rubbed some people the wrong way when a 21-year-old that hasn't played one down with his football team was coming out and saying that. But ever since he has gotten on the field, he seemingly has gotten better, and I think we start to see now just exactly the type of player that Cincinnati got at that number 17 overall spot. Really out-golden Zach Taylor. They've been raving about his versatility. There was a play in the Philadelphia game where he was out with the starting edge rushers with Osai and Miles Murphy on the football field, and he actually shifted in and played that defensive tackle spot on a particular 3rd and 5 against Philadelphia. So the fact he can do that, move around different spots along the offensive line. We also saw him pick up Chase Brown on a bit of a wheel route. This is a guy that's 280-plus pounds moving around like that, and the ferociousness and intensity that he plays with really is intriguing. So with Shemar Stewart, I think he's certainly turned the page since he moved on from his contract issues. I am very, very excited about that. And one kind of storyline that's kind of been buried here is the fact that he was out there getting reps with the first team, right? We didn't see Shemar Stewart really with the first team in that preseason game against Philadelphia. It was more second team reps, but the fact that he was out there going against guys like Joe Burrow and Lucas Patrick and the ones along that offensive line, could that be a sign of things to come? Is this a guy that, assuming Trey Hendrickson is back and ready to go for week 1 against Cleveland, could he be opposite Trey Hendrickson as a rookie ready to go in week 1? I think now that becomes something that is a conversation that we need to have. So to answer your question, I'm really excited about the development we have seen from Shemar Stewart. I don't think what happened here on the practice field is any reason why people should look at him in a bad light. Yeah, he made a mistake. Yeah, he bumped into a guy that you can't be bumping into. I understand that, but Burrow obviously shook it off. He was fine, and there's a lot of questions on this Bengals defense on the back end, which we'll probably save that for a different day, a different video where we'll break that down. But Shemar Stewart, I'm really pleased with the progression that he has made, and I think we're all fired up to see him play on Monday night.
Absolutely. A lot of questions to be answered about this defense, the secondary included, along with that front seven. As always, Chatterbox Sports will be here to have you covered all season long. Be sure to like this video, subscribe on YouTube. Plus, make sure you follow us on all of the social media channels, TikTok, Instagram, X, Facebook, wherever you get your news. Chatterbox Sports is there for you. Stone Shield's putting out daily content covering the Bengals as we work through camp. And, of course, we'll have live watch-alongs all season long, along with post-game breakdowns. For Stone Shields, I'm Craig Sandlin. This has been Chatterbox Bengals. We'll see you next time. Hoo day.